Hello, I am Assistant Professor Dr. Ganesh R, Khanderao, Head, Department of English, Amulakchand Mahavidyalaya, Yavatmal, Maharashtra. In my today's lecture, we are going to deal with linguistics and communicative competency of language. Now let's see the introduction of my today's lecture. Language is the species-specific and species-uniform possession of man. Language is ubiquitous. It is the faculty of speak or speech of human being in general. There is a difference between the language and a language. Now let's see what is a language first of all. A language is a particular code, conventions which human beings operate through the possession of the faculty of speech. Since linguistics is the study of language, it is the imperative for the linguist or student of linguistics to know what language is. It is basically a complex phenomenon. Language is an organized noise used for communication in an actual social situations. It has also been defined as contextualized systematic sounds. Now let's see some of the definitions given by linguist. The first is given by Patanjali. According to him, language is that human expression which is uttered out by the speech organs. The second definition is given by Sapir. According to Sapir, language is a primarily human and non-instinctive method of communicating ideas, emotions and desires by means of a system of voluntarily produced symbols. One different sort of definition is given by H.G. Gardiner. Let's see the same definition. Language in its widest sense means the sum total of such signs of our thoughts and feelings as are capable of external perception and as could be produced and repeated at will. Langer is a well-known linguist. He also has defined the language in his definition like this. According to him, a language is a device that establishes sound meaning correlations, pairing meanings with signals to enable people to establish ideas through observable sequences of sound. R.H. Robbins is also one of the linguists. He has tried to define the language through his definition like this. A language is a symbol system that is based on pure or arbitrary conventions. It is infinitely extendable and modifiable according to the changing needs and condition of the speaker. So as far as the description of language is concerned, sound units constitute its inner structure in terms of formal patterns which function meaningfully in different contexts. Sound, form, and meaning are the three components of language. Language as a system of communication. The value of sounds and the meaning of meaning lie encapsulated in the formal patterns of language. Sounds are the raw materials of language or speech. These are disturbances of air created by the conscious movements of the organs of respirations with the help of mouth. So linguistics study only the significant particles which are meaningful and structurally relevant entities. Man can produce a great variety of sounds. All of them can be represented by sounds, but all sounds are not used by a language. Therefore, we can produce an infinite set of sentences by a finite set of symbols. Words and meanings are correlated. Linguistics study all these varied sound patterns in the form of smallest unit like phoneme to the largest construction of sentences called text or discourse. Now let's see some of the major characteristics of language. The first is symbolic. Language is symbolic. Human beings make use of sounds for conveying messages to each other, organizing their activities, governing social activities effectively, expressing their personal wishes, desires, dreams, ambitions, thoughts and fantasies also. Out of an infinite number of possibilities of producing speech sounds, only a few are selected and assigned meaningful functions. This use of sounds is symbolic. The second characteristic of language is arbitrary. So, language is arbitrary. Every symbolic character makes language arbitrary. The connection between words or a sound unit itself and the thing it stands for is unexplainable. It is difficult to explain logically the relationship between a sound unit and its phonetic or graphic representation. Next characteristics of language is conventional. Language is conventional. People share features of structure and rules of language with each other. There is a tacit agreement between people for the use of the language. Language is creative and unique also. So every language's phonology is specific to itself, its morphology and syntactical patterns are explainable in terms of uniqueness of the particular language. It enables us to produce an infinite variety of expressions and utterances in spite of the limitations in phonology, grammatical rules and lexical systems. There is one more specific characteristics of the language, that is the duality of the language. Let's see what exactly this duality stands for. A finite set of sound units can grouped and regrouped to generate further functional constituents of the higher hierarchical order. Then another characteristics of the language is interchangeability. The roles of the speaker and the listener can be exchanged. In some cases, This role is defined by the same person at the same time. Next, the displacement. Man can talk about situations, places, and objects far removed from one's present surroundings and time. One can talk about events that happened long time ago at a distant place. Human beings, however, can narrate events in which they were not at all involved. Specialization. This is also one of the separate kind of characteristics of the language. So it is a specialized activity. It can be used in a detached manner. We can talk about an exciting experience or incident at the same time while doing something else. Cultural transmission is also there, which is considered as the strongest and prominent kind of characteristics of the language. Let's see. Speakers of speech community learn their specific language individually through, or we can say with great effort, and they pass on the facts of such language from one generation to other with the help of or through the cultural transmission. There is also paralinguistic. The branch of paralinguistic studies the communicational role of various bodily movements in relation to the linguistic segments. Now let's see the various branches of paralinguistics in detail. Non-verbal human communication. It is a continuous interactive process made up of multi-level, overlapping, discontinuous segments of behavior. A speaker engaged in communication with others makes use of all that at his disposal for conveying meaning to the listeners, apart from the organized sequences of sound and supra-segmental features. Human being uses bodily movements like postures and gestures, movements of facial muscles, eye contact, mobility of eyebrows, distance between himself and other communicants. So consequently, language and the repertoire of how come to be called as paralinguistic channels of communication go together, but they are inseparable. Kinetics. In normal conversation, both an active speaker and a passive listener use a system of gestures that run parallel with the language in use. Such bodily movements appear to constitute a full-scale grammar of kinesics. So kinesics are cultural specific. That is, cultural factors largely determine selective use of body language features. Proxemics. So it studies the use of interpersonal distance for conveying meaning. Maintenance of distance between the speakers and listeners is a significant component. Linguist Vincent Skolko observed it more significant like verbal behavior. So it is also called as social space. We can posit two stages of proxemics engineering behavior. The first is pre-conventional proxemics and the second one is conversational proxemics. Pause. Pauses or stretches of silence are observed to play an important role in communication. Deliberate pause in communication is called as mid-conversational pause. Silence and pauses have been observed to be more potential and expressive in many ways. Apart from the vast reservoir of linguistic and paralinguistic elements used in communication, certain non-phonemic and non-morphemic features are also used. These are non-linguistic sounds. Patch scale. It is another non-verbal feature of communication. Shifts along patch scale convey what cannot easily be communicated through words. These are non-verbal systems and subsystems as effective carriers of meaning and sense. Linguistics and the study of language. Linguistics is the scientific study of language. It does not study any particular language but identifies and establishes the principles and rules, features and processes that are universal and can be applied for understanding all kinds of languages. A scientific analysis of language is carried out systematically on the basis of objectively verifiable observations and within the framework of some general theory of linguistic and language structure. So according to general linguistics, all natural human languages have certain semantic features and abstract formal properties in common, that they are all culturally determined variations on a finite set of universals. So linguistic studies the rules that form the basis of a person's ability to speak and comprehend a particular language. Due to variations in observations and in order to perfect its tools, linguistics makes use of advanced branches of knowledge including acoustic physics and information science. Descriptive linguistics studies languages in terms of internal structures and define them as communication by sequence of speech sounds structured in patterns. So linguists must discard the attitude of language superiority, but he must apply a scientific analysis to make explicit what a native speaker knows implicitly about his language. Noam Chomsky's concept of competence and performance is based on this. So competence is the tacit knowledge of the language, and performance is the use of language in concrete situations. Sentence is a concept that belongs to the theory of competence, while utterance belongs to performance. So language possesses the duality features, the expression and content. At the expression, different level of construction from morphemes, phrases, clauses, sentences to larger compositions. However, at every stage, the linguist must relate features and units of expression with content and experience data of the non-linguistic environment, because language and inner representation of outer reality are intimately interconnected. Thank you so much.